Look, replacing a colonial governor with a local president doesn't automatically change the underlying structure. The ghost of the old system is still running the machine. This is exactly what Achille Mbembe means by necropolitics.
The politics of death. Okay, walk me through that.
Basically, Mbembe argues that even if the colonizer physically packs their bags and leaves, they leave behind a system. A system where global powers and old colonial structures still get to decide who gets to live a full life and who is left to just survive. Who gets the resources and who is stuck in misery?
I see. The monster changes its skin, but the teeth are the same.
Precisely. And if you want to see how that looks in the real world, just look at David Harvey's work on economic dependency. These independent countries are often still trapped. They're forced to sell their raw materials to their former masters for pennies and then buy back expensive finished goods.
It's a rigged game. And then you have the debt regimes imposed by international banks.
Exactly. Those structural adjustment programs. They're basically a polite way of saying, we'll lend you money, but in return, you have to slash spending on healthcare, schools, and social safety nets.
So the people pay the price twice. First with their resources, and then with their well-being.
Right. The colonizer might be gone, but the economic and political ties of dependency, the actual skeleton of the system, is very much alive and well. It's a structural prison that keeps the collective psyche in a state of permanent exhaustion.
And that structure isn't just an abstract map. It directly impacts the heartbeat of everyone living in that society.
Of course. Think about it. If a society is being crushed under a mountain of debt, if its most fertile lands are owned by foreign corporations, and if the youth have zero hope for the future, that helplessness people feel, that's not a medical condition. It's a completely understandable reaction to reality.
So it's not a personal lack of willpower or resilience. It's a structural prison.
Absolutely.
But you know, up until now, we've been talking about the people, or society, as one big group. But we have to zoom in, right? Because this weight isn't distributed equally.
Exactly. This is where intersectionality completes the puzzle. Colonial projects didn't just stop at seizing land and labor. They went deeper. They reshaped the most intimate parts of human life, our gender roles and our families.
How so? How does a global system reach into someone's private home?
Think about the work of Silvia Federici. She shows how colonial and capitalist domination relied on the violent control of bodies, specifically the bodies of women and LGBTQ+ individuals.
I see. The body itself becomes a territory.
Precisely. The female body was redefined as a tool to produce new labor, new workers for the system. Reproductive labor wasn't love anymore. It was a resource to be disciplined and controlled. At the same time, any traditional way of living or loving that didn't fit the norm was branded as primitive or sinful and crushed.
So if you're a poor woman in a post-colonial country, you're not just carrying one weight. You're getting hit from 3 different sides at once.
Exactly. First, there's the legacy of your skin color or ethnicity. Second, there's the sheer pressure of poverty. And third, you're dealing with the weight of a male-dominated society, patriarchy.
It's like a triple-layered trap. It feels almost impossible not to be crushed under that. This kind of multi-layered oppression creates a psychological wound that goes much deeper than just feeling sad.
Absolutely. And the key is that these forms of oppression are inseparable. They feed and reinforce each other. This is why certain groups have endured such a disproportionate amount of suffering. The history isn't just behind them, it's on top of them.
So the colonial experience isn't a one-size-fits-all.
Not at all. It's always those at the bottom who carry the heaviest load. And this brings us to what I think is the most provocative claim of all.
You mean the idea of medicalizing resistance?
Yes. Think about this. If we try to treat depression while ignoring the history and the structure, we risk pathologizing survival itself. That is a dangerous line to walk.
It really is. What are we actually saying when we do that?
Let's unpack it. When someone is subjected to systemic injustice, humiliation, and deep poverty, and they feel sad, angry, or hopeless,
Which are completely normal, human reactions to an abnormal situation.
yes, they aren't symptoms of a disease. On the contrary, they are healthy responses to the conditions they're in. But if you step in and immediately blame it on a serotonin deficiency and say, "Here, take this pill, calm down, and try to be more positive," what are you actually doing?
You're essentially stripping that person of their right to protest. You're taking away their right to feel pain about the world. Instead of saying the system is broken, you're telling them they are broken.
Spot on. You're silencing the alarm instead of putting out the fire.
Their pain is proof that something is wrong with the world, and by labeling it as a disorder, you're making the individual the problem while the structure remains untouched.
Yes, you're shifting the blame to the individual when it's the system that's actually broken. You're treating the symptom while ignoring the disease, the oppressive structure itself.
And that's the trap of medicalizing resistance.
Yes, that person's pain is actually the proof that the system is failing. It's an alarm bell. And by using a pill to silence that alarm, you're just muting the signal. This brings us to the ultimate challenge: decolonizing the mind.
This is where it gets really deep. Ashish Nundy argues that liberation isn't just a political struggle, it's a psychological one. Why? Because after a certain point, domination becomes normal. It becomes part of the air you breathe.
And that's the toughest part to break. You stay under pressure for so long that you eventually internalize it. You start thinking, I guess this is just how things are. Maybe we are just lazy. Maybe we actually deserve to be ruled.
You accept the demeaning role the colonizer carved out for you as if it were your own truth. You start wearing their insults like a second skin.
Their values become your inner voice. So, decolonizing the mind means recognizing, questioning, and finally dismantling that deep-seated sense of inferiority. It's about tearing down those colonial frameworks inside your own head.
Through this lens, depression stops being just a clinical diagnosis on a chart. It becomes a field of political analysis.
Yes, it's no longer just sadness.
It's both a symptom and living proof of the historical structures that still shape our world.
Exactly. That depression is telling a story much bigger than your personal life. It's telling the collective story of an entire society.
So let's wrap this up. Today, we've looked at depression through a truly unconventional lens.
It's a world away from the serotonin and pills conversation we're used to.
We've seen that depression isn't just an individual issue of brain chemistry. It's a public and historical echo of colonial domination. The roots of this pain lie in the land, the economy, and the politics. It's about dispossession, systemic violence, and the structural inequalities that are still very much alive today.
Yes, and that leads us to a radical conclusion. Truly dealing with this kind of depression isn't something you can do through individual therapy or medication alone. You can't just fix the person if the world they live in is designed to break them.
It requires dismantling the very conditions that produce the wound in the first place.
Absolutely. It means tackling economic dependency, racial hierarchies, gender oppression, and that stubborn, lingering shadow of the empire that just won't fade away.
Because the history of colonialism continues to live on in people's minds, long after the old buildings have crumbled and the flags have changed. The ghost is still in the machine.
Absolutely. And without confronting that history, without understanding that mental legacy, true healing seems almost out of reach.
That's the core of it. In these societies, recovering from depression means confronting and struggling against the world that created it. It's an idea that stays with you long after the conversation ends.
It really does.
So, we'll leave you with one final thought. If personal healing is so deeply intertwined with collective and historical justice, then what does recovery actually look like? Doesn't this fundamentally change everything we thought we knew about the human psyche and the entire concept of therapy?